Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we're diving into one of the most charming, incredibly relatable, and frankly, fiercely debated mysteries in behavioral science. We are exploring the social blush of the animal kingdom. Throughout our time today, we're going to zero in on one single massive question. Do animals actually feel the complex emotion of embarrassment? Or, are we humans just seeing exactly what we want to see? Well, let's dive in and find out.
Take a second right now and think back to a time your pet did something completely ridiculous. Maybe your cat totally misjudged a jump onto the couch and then just awkwardly pretended it meant to do that all along. Or maybe your dog bumped right into a glass door and looked totally mortified, literally hiding its face in shame. It's so incredibly tempting to watch that happen and instantly think, oh my gosh, they are so embarrassed right now. But what's actually going on inside their heads in that exact moment?
Let's start breaking this down in Section 1, the guilty pet illusion. Okay, picture this super relatable scenario. You walk into the living room, you spot your absolute favorite, now completely chewed up slipper on the floor, and sitting right next to the crime scene is your dog. Their eyes are huge, ears pinned back, tail firmly tucked. Instantly, our human brains fire up and we project our own feelings right onto them. We think, look at him, he knows he messed up, he's ashamed. But science tells us we really need to pump the brakes on that assumption. And this brings us to a really crucial concept, anthropomorphism. Basically, this is when we attribute human traits, emotions, or intentions to non-human things. We humans are deeply social creatures, right? Our brains are practically hardwired to read human emotions into everything around us. It's a totally natural reflex. But when we're trying to investigate animal behavior, this reflex can actually cause us to completely misread what an animal is truly experiencing. So, if it isn't human guilt or human embarrassment, what exactly is it? Let's move into Section 2, Science of the Social Blush. To solve this mystery, we first have to define what embarrassment actually is. At its core, it's a social emotion. These are highly complex emotions that depend entirely upon the thoughts, feelings, or actions of other individuals. True embarrassment isn't just a quick reflex of fear. It actually requires a distinct, highly developed sense of self-awareness. You have to understand that you exist as an individual, and, here's the kicker, you have to actively care about your reputation in the eyes of others.
The real difference here comes down to intent. True human embarrassment is driven by self-awareness and this profound desire to protect our social standing within a group. But what's happening with the dog and the chewed-up slipper? That is animal appeasement. That classic guilty look isn't them feeling shame over destroying your footwear. Instead, it's a deeply instinctual drive to avoid conflict. The animal is reading your angry body language, your tone of voice, and they're using appeasement gestures, like tucking that tail, to say, hey, please don't be mad, I'm not a threat. It's driven by a fear of punishment, not some internal crisis of social identity.
But hold on, dogs are just one piece of the puzzle. What happens when we look further up the evolutionary ladder? Let's check out Section 3, Primate Fails and Facepalms.
Field scientists have observed some genuinely hilarious and deeply surprising moments out in the wild. Just imagine a chimpanzee strutting through the jungle, totally confident, acting like the absolute boss of the troop. Then, suddenly, it trips over a branch and completely wipes out. What does it do? Instead of just dusting itself off and moving on, the chimp will often scramble up and immediately look around to see if any other chimps saw the fall. If it thinks it's being watched, it might quickly scratch a fake itch or just try to play it cool. Sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? The science behind these primate fails comes down to three fascinating factors: reputation management, maintaining their position in the social hierarchy, and masking vulnerability from rivals. Chimps live in these incredibly complex and sometimes pretty ruthless political societies. If you look clumsy or weak, a rival might use that exact moment to challenge you for your rank. So that quick look around after tripping, it's an incredibly human-like reaction for sure, but it's driven by a calculated evolutionary need to maintain rank and mask weakness. Still, it brings us tantalizingly close to the building blocks of true embarrassment. Let's shift our detective work away from mammals for a minute and look to the skies in Section 4, Avian Ego, Crows and Parrots.
Think about this highly relatable mistake, dropping something in public. Say a brilliantly smart bird, like a parrot or a crow, is trying to crack open a nut, and they completely fumble it right in front of the flock. Instead of just picking it up, which would basically broadcast their mistake to everyone, the bird will suddenly start aggressively preening its feathers. It's the avian equivalent of whistling, looking away, and acting like, yep, totally meant to drop that. Just remembered I needed to clean this wing right now.
Biologists actually have a term for this. They call it displacement behavior. These birds are hyper-aware of flock scrutiny. Just like the primates, they use these clever distraction tactics to mask their incompetence. Now, they aren't turning red in the face with human shame, but they are absolutely using an evolutionary strategy to avoid looking foolish and weak to the rest of the flock. It's a seriously brilliant social survival tool.
So how widespread are these behaviors? Let's explore Section 5, Elephants and Emotional Intelligence. When a baby elephant makes a public misstep, like stumbling face-first into the mud, the reaction from the herd is intense. The adult elephants will immediately rush over, loudly rumbling, comforting the calf, and physically shielding it from view. It's this stunning display of social support. Elephants are hyper-aware of group dynamics. They recognize a moment of vulnerability in a family member and immediately move to resolve that tension. It shows a level of empathetic awareness that is just staggering. They deeply understand what it means to be exposed.
If we step back and evaluate the cognitive toolkits of the animals we've been talking about, a really clear pattern emerges from the data. Passing the mirror test for self-awareness, having a complex social hierarchy, and using advanced tools, these are major indicators of high intelligence. Dogs have the pack hierarchy, but they lack that self-awareness mirror test. Chimps, crows, and elephants, though, they check every single box. They possess the exact cognitive checklist necessary for true self-awareness. They know who they are, and they know others are watching them. And that brings us incredibly close to solving our mystery.
So where exactly does that leave us? Let's render a verdict in Section 6, more human than we think?
Our scientific understanding of this has evolved so much over the decades. We used to think animals only operated on instinctual fear, running purely on mechanical survival instincts. Then, we realized they practice social appeasement, like our dog with the slipper just trying to avoid a scolding. But now, with chimps tiding their trips and birds faking feather preening, we are seeing behavior that borders on self-conscious emotion. We're recognizing highly complex emotional layers that we previously thought belonged strictly to humans.
All of this brings us to a powerful realization. We must be careful not to dismiss complex animal behaviors as mere instinct, just as we shouldn't assume they feel exactly as we do. The truth is far more fascinating. They might not feel embarrassment exactly the same way a teenager does walking into the wrong classroom on the first day of school, but their emotional lives are rich, highly strategic, and deeply sensitive to the judgments of their social worlds.
So that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. Are we really the only ones who blush? The next time your pet, or maybe an animal at the zoo, makes a goofy mistake and gives you that look, remember the science we explored today. They might just be trying to appease you, or they might actually be trying to save face in their own brilliant evolutionary way. The animal kingdom is just so much more emotionally complex than we ever imagined. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your eyes open. You never truly know